So you've picked your National History Day topic, what now? As you get started with your research, there are some tips that you want to keep in mind to help you do successful research. So the first thing that you want to make sure that you know when you start researching is what you are looking for. And so that's step one in our researching guide, is decide what you are looking for. Because you want to be specific. Let's say I'm doing my National History Day project on the March on Washington. I may not just want to type into Google March on Washington because I'm going to get a whole lot of results. Wow, I got 832 million results. The first result that comes up is Wikipedia, and the second one is InfoPlease, and both of those are sites that anyone can edit, and I don't know if the information is good. And that may not help me figure out specifically what I want. So first, I want to be specific about what I want to find. This is the time for you to decide if you're looking for background information, if you're looking for personal stories, if you want to know about causes and effects, laws related to the topic, or what you want to know. So let's say I want to find stories of people who attended the March on Washington. When I type that in, the first thing that comes up is from the Washington Post. The second thing that comes up is from a school. And I see here that there's something called I Was There. And so all of a sudden I think I already have better results because I was specific about what I was looking for. You also want to make sure you know if you want to find secondary or primary sources. Secondary sources will help you learn background information about something. Primary sources can be good to get the perspective on the event in your own eyes. And again, you want to choose the best search term. Remember, you're not having a conversation with Google. So I want to type in, if I'm looking for stories of people who attended, that's what I'm going to type. I don't need to write, what was the March on Washington? Because that may not help me out and give me the answer, except from Wikipedia, which may or may not be a useful source. Once I have found my search term, my next step is to evaluate if my site is credible. And credible means that the information on it is something that I can believe to be true. So a few guidelines. I'm going to go back to my, my other search term, stories from people who attended the March on Washington. Because when I did this, I figured right away that some of these were pretty credible sources. The first thing that came up was the Washington Post, and the third one was CNN. And I know that those are both bigger news organizations that tend to be pretty well respected. I also saw this site that ends with .edu. If you find a site that ends with .edu, it's a school. It's usually a college. And so a lot of the times I trust sites that have .edu because they're from colleges, so probably someone's done some more research. This is cool, this has audio attached to it. But that can be another good clue that you found something reliable. So I'm looking through here and I see more news sources, so USA Today, NPR, those are both pretty credible news sources. I see this one that ends in .org. So if the web address ends in .org, that means it's an organization. Now, some organizations are reliable and some of them aren't. So I might need to go to this and then look and see what can I learn about this group to find out if this is a really good site or not. Some things that you want to ask yourself when you find sites, is there any kind of clear bias or perspective? You want to find out when something was published and figure out who the author is. So in this case, I find this site, it doesn't actually have a lot of information on it. Oh, read memories, okay. So if I click there, it looks like it's pulling up specific memories of people who were at the March on Washington, and it's from this group called the Capitol Hill History Project. So what I might do is actually Google that, Capitol Hill History Project, and see, can I learn, is this really a thing that exists? Oh, they have their own website, Their job, their mission is to collect the history of people. They collect oral histories from Capitol Hill residents. Okay, so I'm feeling like this is a pretty good site because this organization is all about that. But if I end up Googling and I find that this is like a person who's running for political office or someone who's trying to spread a really bad message, then that might not be a good site. The next thing that you want to do, once you have found a site, you've decided it's credible, is decide what's most important to record from it. And use your Google Doc to keep track of what you've learned. So if you look at your research tracker, which you've hopefully created by now, and open it up, there's some specific information that's asked for on here. Each new source you find, you're going to give it a number. So let me go back to my results. Let's say I'm going to go with this Washington Post article about the March on Washington. And so when I look at this, there's a few important things that I learned. It has this little overview at the top. And so I learned the date of the March on Washington. I don't need this whole sentence. If the date is what I want to know, then let me pick that. I'm going to go back to my research tracker. This is source 1. Seems like it's a secondary source because it is the Washington Post, and it's writing after the fact. And the fact that my fact here is the March on Washington. Oops, let me take off the bold. March on Washington took place that date. And I'm just going to go ahead and type it in so the formatting lines up. Okay. If I look back at the article, it also says there were 200,000 Americans who came to Washington. So I could also put that 200,000 people came to Washington. Again, for the facts, I'm not listing out full sentences. I might use bullet points, maybe asterisks to organize my facts. If I look back at it, then I see there's these stories, and so people have sent in their stories of the march, and they've written about what it was like. Now this is a quote, and so for this, I want to actually keep track of, whoa, and see there's a lot of information. So I see all these long stories that people have submitted. All right, but let me go up to this first one. And here's the part where he's remembering what it was like that day. This was submitted by a man named Timothy Proughton. And so I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to my Google Doc and I can paste that in right here. And because I copied it directly, I need to make sure that I put it in quotation marks. So I'm going to put quotation marks. Quotation marks. I'm going to have this quote by Timothy Proughton, who said he attended the March on Washington. Okay. And so I can keep track of that. This is my first source, this Washington Post article. Now I might want to keep track of more information from this, and I'm going to keep using number 1 to help me remember that it's all from the same article. If I go on to a second article, I'm going to call that number 2. Now this is the most important part, is making sure I keep track of exactly where I got it from so that I can go back and do my citation later. And so there's a few things I need to make sure I have. I really need this whole website, and I'm going to go File, Copy, so I get the whole thing. I don't just want to know Washington Post because that's not going to help me get back to that exact web page. So I have that there. The date I found it is important because I'm going to need that in my citation. So today is January 26th. And then I need the title, the author, and the type. So this is called March on Washington, Unfinished Stories. And so I'm going to go ahead and put that here as my title. Oops, and it went in real big, so I'm going to go to clear formatting, which is this TX, and I'm going to make it smaller. And so I can fix this so that it doesn't take up too much space. And it looks like the author, I'm not quite sure who the author is right now. It seems like it kind of depends on who submitted their stories. And then for type, I'm going to say this is a newspaper article web page. Okay, and so I have this information now that's going to help me as I keep going. I have some facts that I learned, I have a quote from someone who came, and I have the information that's going to help me get back to this web page later to be able to do my citation. And so that's how you're going to want to get started doing some research for your National History Day project.